Scrooge was a man who had lots of money. He just didn't want to spend it on anybody else. There's a very simple key to fighting better for everybody in any argument that you're going to have.
So Maxine, you're a psychotherapist and a couples counsellor, and I'm wondering, how often do financial fights come up around Christmas time between couples?
Well, it's a real flashpoint for couples, isn't it? Christmas, because it's all about spending money. A lot of Christmases, whether it's socialising or presents or decorations. So if you do have a tendency to argue about money, Christmas is going to be a big time of the year for that. Yeah.
So can you give me an example? Is it a sense that one person's a spender and the other one's a saver, and they have long-term goals, but one person just wants to throw caution to the wind and go for it and the other doesn't? Or how else might it manifest?
Well, I think the vast majority of couples, you'll have two people with different spending habits. Like, that's not unusual at all. It's probably quite rare to have a couple where they'll both have similar spending habits. So with everything else, when it comes to being in a healthy couple, communication is just the key thing. So you can work very well having very different spending habits as long as you're good at communicating. You know?
So tell me how a couple could communicate this a few weeks before they go out and hit the shops.
Well, an established couple is probably already going to have an idea of what's going to happen around Christmas, and that maybe one might sometimes overspend or overindulge or buy presents that are too expensive or decorations that are too expensive. So I think that for them, it's not going to be a few weeks out, it's going to be a few months out. They're going to know, they're going to both be aware of what the financial situation is in the household. And there'll be a conversation about, we might need to tighten belts this year, or, what's the budget going to be like this year? I think if you haven't had that conversation around October, November, you'll definitely need to have it in December. Look, where do we stand here? How much can we spend? That needs to be an open and honest conversation where both people are listening, And you might have one person who's cautious or more kind of future focused. And you might have, nowadays, you might have a couple who's saving to buy a house or to renovate a house or something like that. And you'll always have one in that couple who's more focused on that. And then you'll have the other who's more kind of present focused. Oh, well, yeah, but it's Christmas. Yeah, but we said we'd have a big holiday next year, or we said we'd buy a house next year. And it's about kind of compromising on that, okay? I mean, there's no point in just forgoing all the joy of Christmas because you're saving towards something. It's a bit of give and take, I think, is the key.
So you sit down with couples. They're both in the room.
Yes.
Do disappointing Christmas presents ever come up?
They can.
Okay.
Yes, they absolutely can. It depends. I think what comes into play there is expectations.
Yes.
So if you have a couple who's been married for a long time, one of them might be known as a bad Christmas present buyer.
Yes.
Right. So I think if you're in a couple and you've been together quite a while, and you already know, oh, she's not great at buying presents for me, or he's not great at picking presents for me, ask for what you want. Like, if you can, if not asking it directly for what you want, give a few choices.
Yes.
Because some people actually get very anxious about buying presents for their loved one too. So I always think if that's not great between the two of you, if the present giving and present buying is not great, again, communicate directly about that. Look, here's what I would like, or this is the shop that I would like to get something from, or something like that, you know?
Yes. Do you think you should set a budget that you're both going to spend so it doesn't go into that, I got you a watch and you got me a wooden back scratcher? Should there be a sense of I'm going to spend X and you're going to spend X?
Absolutely. I think that needs to be a part of the whole budget conversation, actually. You know? If you're going to talk about the budget for Christmas, then the budget for gifts for one another should definitely come into it. And I know I've heard of couples kind of saying, getting into that conversation of, let's not buy one another presents. Things are too tight this year. We just won't bother buying one another presents. That's perfectly fine and okay, as long as you're both being honest about that. That really, I don't want a present. Because this thing of, I don't really want a present, and then having to mind read, do they really mean that? Should I get something small? Just try to be really honest.
Yes.
Because it's a needless argument then, later on in the year,
Can financial fights come up in the broader family, not, coming out of romantic relationships?
Mm-hmm.
Do you encounter financial fights that go on, I don't know, between siblings, say, who one might be hosting Christmas and feel that it's all left to them, or does that type of thing come up?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
You'll have in a big family where there's loads of siblings where maybe one always hosts Christmas. I mean, there's all sorts of things that come up. One always hosts Christmas, so that becomes the status quo, and people start taking that for granted. And then you might have somebody who wants to host Christmas, but the other person takes over. And then the expense of hosting Christmas dinner for 5 or 6 people is a lot, So what I hear a lot of families do is everybody will bring a dish, or somebody will bring the drinks and somebody will do the food or something like that. And I think that evens it out. But again, it's about your expectations, and everybody knows their family and they know what their brothers and sisters are like. So if there's somebody in the family who you have an expectation that they're going to pull their weight, whereas every year before that they haven't, you're setting yourself up for disappointment then,
Yes. This is what it's all. A lot of this is coming back to setting yourself up for disappointment,
Yes.
which is interesting because, it's, sure, I don't want anything. Don't be getting me anything when you really do. Or, just having got disappointing gifts year after year after year, and then not saying what you want. So yeah, like you're saying, it does come down to clear communication, doesn't it?
It comes down to clear communication. It comes down to, if somebody is consistently disrespecting boundaries, or you feel like they're not pulling their weight, or you feel like they're not communicating properly or whatever, you have to be direct and say it to them. Otherwise, there's going to be an argument or there's going to be disappointment,
Do you buy into the whole love languages philosophy?
No.
Okay. Okay.
I don't.
Because the reason I ask that is one of them is gifts.
Yes.
And I've always wondered how somebody articulates that. My love language is lovely gifts. So please gift me.
Well, it's controversial because a lot of people do subscribe to the love languages, and I know there's been lots of books written about it. But the reason why I don't is because it can set people up for a transactional relationship. And I don't think that's very healthy. So a relationship about what it is we can do for one another rather than who we are as people,
Yes.
That's a healthier version, I would like to think.
So let's get into these conversations at couples. Okay, so if a couple are already arguing at this point about money, how can they fight better, so to speak?
Well, there's a very simple key to fighting better for everybody in any argument that you're going to have. And that's trying to listen to the other person rather than trying to be heard. So what I would say to couples, new or old, in fact, if you're newly in a couple, it's a really great idea to set a ground rule. that if we have to have a difficult conversation, we're both going to go into it with the objective of listening to one another. Because once you go into it with the objective of being heard, nobody's heard.
Yeah.
Both people are fighting to be heard, and nobody is being heard. Whereas if you go into that, and sometimes it's really hard because, and this is another thing, don't try not to get into a conversation with somebody when the temperature is high, when you're already quite triggered, when you're already feeling angry, when you're already feeling hurt. It can be really difficult to have a productive argument then. You know.
So what does that look like? Is it like, let's both go for a walk and come back to this in half an hour, sleep on it? What would you say?
I wouldn't say sleep on it, because then if you say sleep on it, you might have a very hard night's sleep, tossing and turning. And I know I do this, and I think a lot of people do this, where you kind of have conversations in your head before you've had the conversation. Like, I'm going to say this and I'm going to say this. And sleepless night, absolutely. So, but I would say is, yeah, go and do you for an hour, like whatever it is that you like to do to relax for an hour, whether it's read the paper or go for a walk the dog, cook, so that the heat is gone out of the situation and you can come back into it and have a more level-headed, reasonable conversation. Mm-hmm. Doesn't work all the time, but I think it's going to work some of the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're often given the advice of you shouldn't, in an argument or a constructive conversation, you shouldn't be saying you always, you never, or even you. You know, it should be more, you know, I am feeling. Would you agree with that?
I do think it's something to work towards, definitely. I don't think it's always possible.
Okay.
But the reason why they say that is because if you start accusing, immediately the other person's going to go on the defensive. And once they go on the defensive, you're not going to get a productive argument then. Mm-hmm. You know, their back is to the wall and they're going to be fighting to get out of that corner. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't, it makes for what's called a circular argument rather than a productive argument. So you're going around in circles.
Yes.
And nothing is getting resolved.
Okay. So it's not you're a miserable cheapskate. It's more I don't feel valued when you don't buy me a present.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel devalued.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about debt at this time of year. There's a lot of people going into debt this Christmas. I would say more than previous Christmases with the cost of living crisis. So that would kind of cast, I don't know, I think it would bring a lot of tension to Christmas, unless you can put your head in the sand totally. When you're dealing with couples, are you dealing with couples now who are going into debt or in debt for Christmas?
Well, again, you see, there's different types of going into debt, right? So you're going to have people, and there is going to be a certain amount of people this year who are going to get a loan out for Christmas with the cost of living. But then you're going to have other people who'll say to you, no, I never get a loan out for Christmas. But they'll forgo paying some bills. Same thing. It's still a debt. And I think you're going to have a lot of people this Christmas who are going to be in that situation where they're going to be forgoing paying bills for December and try to catch up with it in January. And it'll be because they don't have any other option because they can't afford Christmas otherwise. And it's really sad that we're in that situation. And I think that's definitely going to cause arguments.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you may have a situation where you're not telling your other half that you're not paying this bill. Now, that's much easier to do than not tell your partner that you've gotten a loan out. You know? So I think then that's going to cause a lot of arguments then in January and February when the other half finds out that you haven't paid that bill.
Yes.
You know?
What about low cost and no cost activities for couples? Do you ever find yourself recommending them? You know, so because it's a very spendy season. It's very, you know, we'll go out to a lovely restaurant, we'll go and buy each other fabulous gifts. But, you know, to pull it right back, Is there anything couples can do together that's not going to cost very much money that will be very good for building the relationship?
Well, there is, of course, lots of things that couples can do where they don't have to spend any money. But even in saying that, you probably are still going to, you know, even if you go, these days you go for a walk in the park, you'll usually go and buy a coffee. So it's hard to not spend any money on anything, you know, unless you're really, you have that conversation beforehand where you say, I see a lot of people now, I think it's a great idea, where they'll have maybe one day of the week where they've agreed they won't spend any money at all. They'll bring their lunch to work, they'll bring a flask of coffee to work, whatever it is. I think that's a great idea. So if you're both on the same page about that, and you've both decided, listen, we're going to try not to spend any money today, or we're going to have a low cost Christmas. Yes, but I still think that you need to have a budget for that. Because what one person's low cost Christmas or low cost date looks like is not the same as another person's.
Yes, yeah. Can I ask about your own family and how you navigate it all from a financial point of view?
How I navigate it all? Well, I work for myself. So, of course, what that means is there's not a salary. So that means that the budget can be kind of very, very different every year. I suppose what I have found for myself is that having a child who's a little bit older now has definitely gotten easier, because I'm able to kind of communicate in a more realistic way about how things are, and I'm thankful that he's very understanding of that. But with young children, that can be a little bit more difficult, can't it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. Yeah.
And everybody, no matter who you are, if you have small children, you want to give them that magical Christmas, don't you?
Yes. Yeah. So what about, you know, parents out there who might have to have a conversation with their child that, you know, this isn't going to be a very extravagant Christmas for whatever reason. How would one negotiate a conversation like that?
I don't think kids are as, I mean, maybe it's just the children that I know, but I don't think kids have a massive expectation at Christmas of all the trimmings, you know? I think you can do it in a way that makes it really magical and really special and really lovely, but not, you know, go into debt for it, you know? I know there is a lot of things now. I'm so thankful that I kind of don't have small children, because it's what I would say is always be aware around this time of the year, the social media influencer thing, because I do think that gives us an unrealistic expectation of what we're supposed to do as parents. And it's not always actually what the kids want, you know? So what I would say in answer to that question is, listen to your children. Listen to the kids and what they actually want.
Yes.
Because I don't think they're actually asking us to spend lots of money. They probably just want to spend lots of time with us and do nice things and feel like they're in a happy family. I think that's probably what they want more than lots of money spent on them, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's the swirl of this time of year that can make people overspend, because you feel that you're running against the clock.
You can get caught up in it.
Yeah. You almost feel like you have to spend your way out of it. And I'm wondering if taking just a little time out here and there, or just getting it done a little bit earlier, might help people come out of that swirl and maybe just, you know, have a little bit more, spend a little bit more mindfully.
Absolutely. Lovely idea. And I think that's a lot of people are kind of going into that way of thinking, rather than all the spend that all of these social media influencers seem to want you to do.
Yes.
I think there's a very de-influencing trend going on at the moment. That's what I'm seeing. where people are kind of more focused on spending time with people and, you know, doing the relaxing, calming things rather than the crazy bells and whistles, you know?
Yes.
And I don't know. I mean, I back to when I was a kid at Christmas, and I know it was a lot different, but the memories that I have, and I think most people could say this, it isn't about this present that I got or that present that I got. It's about, you know, the moments and the fun and the laughter and things like that. And I think it's the same for kids now, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I was only asking my son about this yesterday. Did he remember presents that he got? And he was kind of saying, well, you know, no, I don't. But he didn't really remember the presents. He remembered the moments, the things that happened, and, you know, and the excitement of Santa was going to be in the house and all of these lovely things. That's what he remembered, not the objects.
Yes. You know? Yeah. What about Christmas Scrooges, though? I mean, they are out there. Have they ever come up in your line of work, whether it's somebody complaining about a Christmas Scrooge in their life? It could be anything from a boss to a partner to somebody who has been called out for being one.
Well, here's what you have to remember about Scrooge.
Okay.
Scrooge was a man who had lots of money. He just didn't want to spend it on anybody else. Okay, he was hoarding his money. So if you don't have the money to spend, you're not a Scrooge. You're just somebody who doesn't have that money to spend. So I think a lot of people worry overly about other people's perception of them as a Scrooge at Christmas, when actually, and if you're somebody who's worried, oh God, I don't have a lot of money to spend this Christmas, I'm going to have to maybe not buy the expensive gifts for mom and dad or sister and brother this year. And then they worry, oh, they're going to think I'm mean. What I would say to you is, look, you need to be realistic with yourself. If you really don't have that money to spend because, you know, the cost of living, because you've lost your job, whatever it is, you're not a Scrooge, you know? And if somebody else is going to think you are, well, that's their opinion.
Yeah. You're always great, because I've interviewed you many times before. You're always great at kind of giving people the words to broach awkward or uncomfortable conversations. So if somebody has to broach that, you know, they just don't have the money to partake in, I don't know, lots of boozy brunches with their friends or a big extravagant gift-giving thing in their family, how would they broach that?
I think, honestly, and I think what you have to remember about broaching a difficult conversation, and this is controversial, what you have to remember about broaching any difficult conversation, if your intention is not to cause hurt, that's all that matters. If the other person takes it the wrong way, that's on them. That's their stuff. And too often we don't have these difficult conversations because we're afraid of how other people are going to take it. And then we remain frustrated and we remain upset and we remain hurt, all because we're afraid that somebody else's opinion of us is going to change. Stop trying to control that, you know? There's no point in getting yourself into debt and distress rather than, you know, risking that somebody might be have their feelings hurt. You know, if it's an adult person, they can cope with having their feelings hurt a little bit.
Yeah. Well, happy Christmas to that. Maxine Walsh, thank you so much.